So the last thing we need to do now is create the modal. So when we click on it, we should see a modal. So in our final one, we can see here, we've got a modal popping up, and then we can close the modal as well. And also if we click on the outside of it, then the modal closes as well. So let's implement that. First of all, what I want to do is close everything down, and in components, we want to create a new folder. This will be the modal component. And let's go ahead and create the modal component. So index.tsx. And then we do refce. This will be named modal, but we now need some piece of state to manage the modal, whether it's open or closed. And the way we would do that is in the button. So in our text container on the hero banner, we just need to get access to that button. So let's go ahead and do that. So in hero, in text container, we want to add a handle click method in here. So handle click is equal to, and we want to toggle between open and set open. So we need to create a piece of state. So const open and set open initially is false. So let's import use state. And then on the handle click, we want to have an arrow function which says set open is equal to the opposite of open. So opposite of the piece of state of open. Now we're getting a TypeScript error in here saying this isn't defined because we haven't defined this prop in our button component. What I also want to do is have this piece of state available in our modal component. So what I'm going to do is underneath is render the modal itself and also pass in the relevant states. We need to accept them, but first of all, let's accept the handle click button in our button component. So in here, I'm going to say handle click like so. And then essentially this is just going to be an on click of handle click like so. And then I just need to update the props. So in here, we will now have a handle click, and this type is going to be of a function that is returning void. So that is all complete. So let me just save that first of all. And what I also want to do is console log the open state. So if I console log the open state just to see if our state is changing from false to true and so on. And finally, I need to pass in the relevant props to the modal component. So let's receive these open and set open props. And we can create a type file in our modal component. So types.ts. And the type is quite simple. Open is a Boolean, and then set open is a dispatch set state action of Boolean. So all we need to do now in here is add react.fc and import the modal props in here. So that is everything set in terms of the functionality. So let's go ahead and test it out. And then what we'll need to do next is create the UI. So if I inspect, so as you can see here, it's false now. So that's correct. If I click show more, it's open. And then if I click out or click show more, it's false. So it's just toggling, which is correct. So now when it's true, we want to render the modal. So we need to create the UI for the modal. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we're going to be doing is using headless UI again. So first of all, I'm going to bring in a couple of items. So the first two we are bringing in is the transition route and the dialog. So we just need to close them off now. So close the dialog and also close the transition route off. And what we need to do is import these in from headless UI. And essentially we need to import fragment as well from React. So transition route is dependent on the open Boolean state. So if it's true, then it will show the transition route. If it's false, it won't. This is a React fragment that we are having here. And then this acts as a div. This div here is of class name relative with a Z index of 10. So essentially this is what the model will be. So now in this div, what we will have is two inner divs. First one is going to be a transition child. So the root always has a child. So let's type in transition child like so. And again, this child has multiple props. So let's paste that in, which is as fragment. It enters with a certain amount and it's got different props in here. So basically when we open the modal, it has a certain transition effect. And this is what that is. And then to close it all off, we need an inner div inside here, which is of fixed inset 0. The background is grey, so that's the background. So the hover and the opacity is 75. So if we look at our browser, this is what that inner div is in the transition child, and you can see the transition coming in slowly. So like that. So that's the first part done. So let's test it out. So as you can see, now that is transitioning in correctly. So now what we now need to do is press escape, and if you click and escape, that's working correctly. So that's working the background, and now we need to do the inner modal itself. So let's go ahead and create that. So let's minimize this transition child, that's the background, and now I'm going to paste in this code over here. So again, this div is fixed. It has an inset of 0, a z index of 10, the width of 100 viewport width, and then an overflow y of auto. Inside here we have an inner div, which is essentially the modal itself. So we have a display of flex, a min height of full, items of n, justify center, a padding of 4, text center, and on the small screens we want to item everything to center with a padding of 0 going across everything. We need a transition again because this is for the inner white div. So that's the inner div that we have. So in our build, you can see here, we need the transition for that white box that we saw just there. So that's where the second transition comes from. Then we have the dialog panel, which essentially is the white box itself. So we have a background of white, which shows that everything is in here. And then we have all of the content within here. So what we can do is we can separate this out, or we could do whatever we want with this content. So if I just cut this out, and I could do modal content, or I can just leave it as it is, like so. So we have a check icon, which is essentially the checked icon that we have at the top. Then we have the title, so you could use your normal H2 or H3 tags, or you could use dialog title like so. And then we have the button component in here, which sets it to false. So if I just import this in, that should be everything for the modal complete. So essentially we would have the 3 pieces of content in here, and all we need to do now is save all. And if we go into our app over here, and if I was to click, we now have the modal showing up here. And then if you click on this, it closes, and also if we click again and click out, it closes as well. So that is the modal.